So, a warm welcome to ProDog Raw's podcast, where I, Caroline Spencer, talk to the experts about holistic and natural alternatives for your dogs. Now, this week, we're talking about protecting your dogs from fleas, ticks, and worms, those nasty parasites. Now, joining me is Alison Frost, canine nutritionist from ProDog Raw. So, without further ado, let's jump in to this week's episode and meet Alison. So, welcome, Alison. Thank you so much for joining me today, talking about parasites and natural prevention from fleas, ticks, and worms. So, yeah,
Yeah, great. Great to be talking about it. We all like to talk about parasites. So yeah, thank you for having me.
yeah, we do indeed, and hopefully, no one's scratching and itching as we're doing this. But
No, exactly.
so, when we talk about natural, Alison, what does natural prevention actually mean?
It basically means that you don't need to use harsh chemicals on your pets. We've got alternative options to try and keep those parasites at bay. So we can use natural food-based ingredients to help make the dog's environment unattractive. We've got topical repellents as well on the coat and skin as a two-pronged approach. And this is basically to help fuel the dog's overall immune and digestive system, which makes them unattractive to parasites. It helps to make their overall immune system a lot stronger. And as we know, parasites do not like strong, healthy animals. They prefer to sort of prey on the weak and the vulnerable. So the two-pronged approach is to fuel and support and improve a dog's immune system and overall health. And by not using chemicals, that will help anyway, because kind of, as I say, chemicals do harm the dogs in varying different ways. So this way means that we can stop the parasites without using harsh chemicals and making the dog's overall health a lot more healthier.
Oh, that's fascinating because we're told so many times monthly or 3 monthly for chemical treatment for our dogs. Now, is this chemical treatment, is it preventing worms and fleas and ticks, or is it causing more upset to their bodies and the environment?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the parasites now are getting immune to these harsh chemicals anyway. So that's the downside. You're putting these chemicals on and they're not actually working anyway. But chemicals generally will build up in a dog system over time. So you might use them monthly and think there's no issue. You can't see any side effects, but nobody knows what's going on at a cellular level. And chemicals just will build up over time and cause all manner of health issues. So from sort of organ issues like liver and kidney damage, digestive systems, dogs become very nauseous, especially with strong wormers. It affects the microbiome, and we all know that the microbiome is so important for immune health. Neurological issues like seizures, which obviously can cause behavioral problems, and at real extreme cases like cancer and death. So, it's better to try and avoid these as much as possible, to ensure that you're doing the best to sort of support your dog's health and longevity, really. And when you look at the environment, especially with spot-ons, these insecticides that are put on the back of a dog's neck, if we pet our dogs, if our children pet our dogs, these insecticides actually absorb into our skin. So they can cause us health issues that we wouldn't necessarily associate with that. And then obviously if your dogs are prone to going into water, into rivers, in any of the waterways, then there's lots of scientific research and studies now from the environment agencies and those sort of associated bodies that it's killing marine life, fish, plants, and obviously all the insects that populate all the area and do the pollinating and provide the ecosystem. So yeah, there's lots of studies online showing that it's having actually a really detrimental effect on the ecosystems around us.
Yeah, no, it's quite alarming actually, isn't it? And
Yeah.
me as a mother, got two-legged children as well as four-legged ones. I never treated or gave my children chemical nit treatments or wormers or anything. I used to treat them if they got it.
Yeah.
So, I've never quite understood why all this chemical stuff is pumped into our animals, particularly. And yeah, love the idea of absolutely natural, because I suppose if we break all this down to the parasites that our dogs can be contracting, was it fleas? Are fleas about a lot?
Yeah, I mean, fleas breed like silly, as we know. I think the stats show that one flea can lay about 1,000 eggs, and then the flea egg cycle just keeps continuing quite quickly. So once you get fleas and flea eggs in the house, it's really difficult to get rid of them quite quickly because they just populate and populate. But yeah, I mean, fleas, you can catch fleas from obviously other dogs, other pets, like if you've got cats, wildlife, rodents that they might come in contact with outside, grassy areas. If the dogs go to the groomers, whether any sort of areas where there's a lot of dogs, then they're going to be prone to sort of one hopping on and jumping over to another dog. And if you're not spotting them and you're not noticing any side effects, that they can soon sort of go out of control.
Right. So what? Okay. What are the signs? How do we discover if our dogs have got fleas?
Well, generally, the first signs I always think is your dog starts to scratch more than they would normally do. That's usually the telltale sign, but not with every dog. I remember my old dog Archie got fleas once, and he didn't scratch at all. So some dogs don't, but the vast majority of dogs will scratch more than usual. So that's the first telltale sign that you can go and check. So, I always say routine, regular brushing, part the fur, check areas that they like to feast on more than ever. So, at the base of the tail, that's a big area where they like to reside because it's warm and around that area, under the armpits, around the back of the ears, any sort of areas like that. And just check with a nit or a flea comb. Those are sort of the telltale signs. And then the other signs to look out for is flea dirt. So it might look like bits of specks of dirt that they picked up from walks. But if you
I
actually put
mean,
it on a white towel or some sort of absorbent towel and spray that with water, they will generally change from brown to a reddy colour. And that is a sign of flea dirt. That's one of the best ways of even if you can't find a flea, because you might only have one or two fleas on the dog. And if you've got thick coated dogs or dark haired coats like I have, well, not me, my dogs, they're not easy to find. They're so quick and so tiny that they're not easy to find. But if you're finding flea dirt around those areas, certainly around the base of the tail, the top of the tail, around the back of the necks and the ears, then the dog has got fleas.
yeah. Right. So yeah, that's interesting, because when our dogs have got fleas, they could have got them from the outside, say from other people's animals and things like that, and they come inside. We've also got the infestation in our houses as well, haven't we? Because just treating, how would you treat a dog naturally if it's got fleas?
Well, the first thing to say is the fleas actually live in the house. They just feed off the dog. So once you've got an issue with fleas in the house, on the dog, chances are they're in your home and your car. People forget that they take the dog to areas in the walking or wherever in the car, and forget that. So yeah, the first thing to do is bathe your dog in a good natural dog shampoo. It doesn't have to be an anti-flea one. It just because as long as it's a good natural shampoo that's suitable for dogs, not baby shampoo or anything like that. And basically wash the dog in the bath or outside, and leave the lather on for a good 5 minutes. Make sure they're covered in lather and sort of, round that area up to the neck. And you will normally find that they'll try and escape up the back of the neck. So you can just pick them off there. So leave it on for a good 5 minutes and then rinse and wash them off. That should kill and drown any fleas that are actually on the dog. And then I always think as a extra precaution, you can use like an apple cider rinse as well with water, just to rinse them off, because the fleas do not like the smell of that either. And then if you can get something like a cedar oil spray, which obviously please do check that it suits your dog because it is part of an essential oil and not all dogs tolerate it. But that as well
Yeah.
can be sprayed into the coat afterwards, and that actually will kill any fleas as well. So that's how we deal with the actual dog. But then it's so important, and people forget this, to treat the house. So wash all the bedding, any throws, bedding, any areas where the dog's residing. Even if they go in your bedroom, if you sleep with it, you must wash all your bedding on your bed. Hoover, 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 hoover. Make sure that you empty the hoover, spray that with something after you've emptied it because they can reside in the hoover. So boil wash everything and literally steam clean if you've got a steam cleaner. And if you need to use chemicals, and what I say is just use them in the house. Make sure the dogs are well away from the area. Make sure it's well ventilated with all the doors and windows open as much as possible. And I've used it myself in the house before, and I'd got a headache from it, even just
Yeah.
being in the area, breathing it in. So make sure your dogs, or even if they can be somewhere else, that's even better. And again, you need to do that to try and break the flea cycle, basically. So it's not going to go overnight. You need to keep doing it every few days as much as possible. It is a pain, but it can be done. And obviously, make sure that you treat anywhere, like your car, if they do go in your car as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so, basically spray your house and vacate it. Every
Yeah, and the
single
last thing
animal.
to do as well is if you've got a garden and whatnot, is if you've got a jet wash, I'd jet wash the garden as well, on the lawn or places like that if you can.
Yeah.
Some people do use what's called nematodes for the garden as well that you can buy from garden centres, and those are just like, I don't even know what they are. I think the little worms, aren't they, that actually eat nematodes that actually eat flea eggs if there's any
Right,
in the garden or the soil.
that's interesting. Didn't know that. And some people I have used Damascus earth. I sprinkled in my house and then
Yeah, I mean, that's a
hoovered that.
natural one, and it does basically break down the chitin in the flea, and basically they dry out and die. And I have used it in the past. You've got to be careful if you've got any human or dog that's got any sort of respiratory issues, though, because
Yeah.
it's such a fine powder, it can get breathed in really easy. I did find it just dried all my dog's coat out. It looked like, yeah, I had a drug habit at home. So that sort of thing. And it is quite messy. So, yes, it
Yeah.
is natural. Yes, it is good, but it will dry your dog's coat out. It's quite fine. So,
It's
yeah,
not ve
I
as you
just,
say, not very good for your chest or theirs either, 'cause it sort of causes
no,
abrasions.
and white
So
powder all over the carpets everywhere. And at the corners are, that's a bit harder to clean. But yeah, a lot of people do use it. So it's just what suits you and your lifestyle.
yeah. I suppose, whether we're talking fleas, ticks, or worms, prevention is always better than cure. Oh, what do we use for prevention?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we'll go on to that because obviously we're going to go through all the three
All right
different
then, yeah,
parasites, aren't we? So
yeah,
yeah, so those are fleas, and then obviously we've got ticks as well, ticks are picked up mainly in wooded areas in the countryside. I'm quite lucky that we're not in a high tick area. You'll know if you're in a high tick area because you will be finding ticks on your dogs quite often, especially in the sort of spring and summer and autumn months. So any wooded areas where there's long grass, where sheep, deer mainly reside, you tend to find much more ticks in those areas. So you've got like certain areas in the country, like the New Forest, certain parts in Scotland, which are, and in Yorkshire, which are sort of quite high tick areas where dogs will pick up ticks quite easily. So yeah, with those areas, you do sort of need to take a little bit extra precautions. I always say like a bit of a multi-pronged approach. So you can use the food-based supplements, which again, as we discussed earlier, make the whole immune and smell of the dog unattractive to ticks. But I would also use topical repellents like natural sprays like Cedar we mentioned earlier. Again, there's others available on the coat before walks so that, they don't smell, they're not attractive, they're not picked up. And then I would also use like a lint roller or brush them after every walk, especially if they've been in wooded areas, so that they just attach before they actually attach the dog. And then you can just get rid of them that way.
Yeah, because they're again, they're quite difficult. They do scurry right deep. If you've got a dog with really thick coat, I remember, in Scotland, you've got lots of bracken, long grass up there, and lots of deer. That I do find the odd tick later down the line, a couple of days later, that's still scrabbling around.
Yeah, and they always, as I say, the more they gorge on the dog and they've attached, the bigger they'll be, and that's when they're easier to see. But if you can get them when they're sort of the smaller ones and they've not gorged as much, and just sort of get what you can off with the lint roller, if there is any on, as I say, if you use a multi-pronged approach, hopefully there won't be that many anyway.
Yeah,
The sooner you get them off, the better, really. But just check your dog when you come back from the walk, and just go over the coat, inner the coat with your hands like you normally would, like you're petting and stroking them. And whenever I found them, they've always normally been there, like there, or on the face, on the, And even bless Winnie last time when I came back from Northumberland, she had one right on her bits underneath on her vulva, so that was a bit of a pain to get off. Bless her. So they do like some really delicate areas, I have to say.
yes, they do. Yeah, a number of times Rora's had one, you say, on a little eyebrow, and that's quite tricky. But so so that's your ticks, which are notoriously really difficult to just repel. But you say you can when you can we can feed them the right food, we can give them the right sort of natural supplements. You put seed aside. I put apple cider vinegar. I don't know where I got this recipe. It's a mix between apple cider vinegar, green tea, and water, and that's
Yeah, there's
really.
lots on the internet. There's lots of good ones. Every just always test it on your individual dog, because some dogs are more sensitive to certain ingredients than others. Before Cedarcide became available, I remember using apple cider vinegar, lemon, fresh lemon, rosemary. And rosemary doesn't suit all dogs, especially if dogs are prone to seizures, epilepsy. So, and garlic in there, and we use that as a topical spray. There was something else in, maybe lavender, I can't remember. And we sprayed all the dogs. So we went on a dog meet with that, and most of the dogs that were on this meet, which is about 30 dogs, all came back with quite a few ticks. The ones that we sprayed daily didn't pick any up. So
Yeah,
there are lots of natural ingredients that you can make up yourself. There's lots of topical already made essential oils and sprays that you can buy online from like Healthful Pets. They've got a really great range. So yeah, just do your research, and obviously just always check with your dog that it suits your dog, and there's no sort of reactions, or you feel that they're not themselves when they've got it on, before you use it, permanently and full time.
yeah, yeah. Perfect. And sometimes we're going to miss the tick and it's going to embed. Would you suggest taking it to vet to pull it out, or?
Yeah, I mean, it does depend where the tick is when you found it. I mean, they are quite easy to remove yourself in most areas, and you can get like the tick twister, the tools, those are the best. And normally they come in a pack of 3, so you've got different sizes depending where the tick are, and they are normally quite easy to remove. But if you have got it in a really delicate place and you're struggling and you're unsure, then yeah, I would,
Yeah,
just pop them to the vets. But just don't, just you need to twist them and remove them, and make sure you remove the head and the legs. So we have got a good video online that I think we'll embed on here anyway. But just don't smother them. Don't try and drown them. Don't try and burn them, especially when they're already on the dog, because what will happen then is they'll just regurgitate the contents back into the dog. So you've got much more chance of them picking up an infection that way.
yeah, absolutely. And some people have suggested sort of smothering in Vaseline. So, but all of those, you just need to. I actually just pick them off, twist and pick with my fingers.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing, great.
I know
Like
what
just
I'm
pick
doing,
pick
but
and
there are
twist.
those fabulous little tools you can use. But as Alison said, if you're a little bit squeamish or you don't know what you're doing, then yeah, just pop
Yeah,
to
and
the
if
vet.
you're in a really delicate place, some dogs will, like I say, it was a bit of a mission to get that one off Winnie, where it was,
Oh, I
bless her, and I
bet.
don't blame it. But yeah, most ticks are easy enough to get off yourself if you know what you're doing. But we've got some great videos at ProDog that'll show you how to do that as well.
So, Alison, how concerned should we be about tick-borne diseases?
Yeah, I mean, there's different areas in the country that are more prone to these diseases from ticks than others. So you can actually go online and check your individual areas. The best thing to do, obviously, is check your dog after high tick area walks anyway, and remove any as quickly as possible. And what you can actually do is, if you're unsure and you think you're in a high tick area and you've pulled ticks off your dog that are prone to these diseases in those, or they've got a frequency of disease in that area, is you can actually freeze the tick for future use. So, if in 12 months or 6 months your dog's suddenly been lame and not itself and lethargic, and the vets can't get to the bottom of it, you've always got that tick in the freezer that they can actually test to see if there is any disease on that tick that's maybe passed on to your dog. But yeah, tick-borne diseases generally is Lyme disease, as we all know, and there's 2 or 3 others that I will try and pronounce, but I'll probably get it wrong, which is babesiosis, anaplasmosis, and ehrlichiosis. But please don't quote me on those. Those are how I would pronounce them, but probably not how they're properly pronounced. But
Well, I'm
yeah,
very
those are
impressed
these sort of.
anyway.
But it's mainly Lyme disease that everyone associates with tick bites.
So that's our fleas and ticks, and now it's on to those worms. So how do dogs get worms? But I suppose puppies have worms when they're born, and
Yeah, that's why it's important to sort of naturally worm or use a less harsher wormer when they are puppies and they're growing up, because they are obviously more prone from picking them up from the mother. But yeah, generally, adult dogs will pick them up from eating other mammals' feces, wild animal feces, or even sheep and horse, maybe dead animals or rodents when they're out. Contaminated soil. A lot of dogs do eat soil. Mine eat soil occasionally, so they can pick hookworm up from soil. Fleas actually can sort of lay tapeworm eggs, so they can get tapeworms from fleas. And if they are eating a lot of sort of not DEFRA approved good quality raw meat as well, they can sometimes pick them up from that, but not ProDog raw meat, obviously, because that's all frozen to -18 and comes from DEFRA approved farms. So
yeah,
yeah, don't worry about good quality raw meat, but yeah, they can pick it up from some.
yeah, because good quality again, it's tested from within an inch of its life for every bite
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
isn't it? Probably
Exactly.
more so than meat you'll find in a supermarket for human beings.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are the signs and symptoms for worms? I think the only time Brora's, not Brora's 10 now, the only time Brora's had worms was a couple of years ago, and the sign there was she was just looking a little bit out of condition. But
Yeah, well, there's different types of worms, obviously. We've got hookworm, whipworm, lungworm, tapeworm. So it does depend on what type of worms maybe have different sort of potential side effects, and the symptoms will vary. But yeah, generally weight loss, scooting. I mean, obviously scooting can be an anal gland issue as well, but it can also be irritation and itchiness around the bottom. Changing dry coarse fur can be one. An increased appetite, because obviously if they've got intestinal worms, they're eating the food that they should be digesting and assimilating. Diarrhea, vomiting. If it's extreme, they can have a swollen abdomen. And obviously with lungworm and heartworm, which we don't get in this country anyway, can be coughing and just not themselves and a bit more lethargic. So there's varying different symptoms, and also these symptoms can be a cause of other issues, not necessarily worms. So it's always good to just rule those out first anyway, which you can do quite easily these days via a fecal stool sample.
so worm counts. Where do we get our worm counts from, Alison? Where would you suggest?
Yeah, the worm counts that we use a company called FetLab. ProDog customers do get 10% discount as well if they use PDR10 at checkout. But yeah, FetLab are brilliant. They're a very professional, experienced company that deal with testing for all types of intestinal and lungworm and giardia. You can buy them online. They're quite economical. I think about £15 for one kit, or you can subscribe and get multi ones for different dogs. It's really easy to do. It's not disgusting. I tend to do them every 6 to 12 months when I remember. But yeah, if your dog did have worms and you treated them, then I would do it a lot more often, just to double check that they have gone. But yeah, it's a really easy, economic way of testing to see if your dog has actually got worms before you uh, decide to treat them either way.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, and when you take it to the post office and they say what's in your package, that's always quite amusing, I find. But so
Yes.
how how often would you send off a sample to Feet Lab?
Generally every 6 months, or if you've noticed something in your dog that doesn't seem normal to him or her. So if your dog suddenly lost weight for no reason or seems ravenous for no reason, or as I say, if you've got any of the symptoms that we've just discussed previous to that, then I would do it more often. But generally every 6 to 12 months I do them if I've got no cause for concern.
Yeah. And talking about all parasites, and what I found really interesting was when you said, when they have a good diet and they've got a really good, robust immune system, this is when parasites and all these nasty little bugs. It's not the greatest of. It's not a great host if we're fit and healthy, like with any illness, I suppose.
No, no, not at all. So it's always better to, fuel the dog and immune system to be the strongest it can be. And then they're just very much less attractive to these types of parasites.
Yeah. Because, at ProDog Raw, there's a fantastic supplement that you had a massive hand in, Alison, called Repel. What are the ingredients in that all these parasites and bugs and really don't like?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is with Repel is it's a food-based supplement and it's a 3-in-1. So it targets worms, ticks and fleas. So it is that you are getting, all parasites in one formula, which not many other companies do. So we've got the black seed oil and the ground pumpkin seeds, which are proven to kill intestinal worms. We've got garlic in there as well. We've got black seed oil. We've got fenugreek. So all of these ingredients that really expel out of the dog as well, to like fuel and make sure that the dog is healthy from an internal perspective, but also it does emit a smell which is not attractive to parasites either. Hence the name Repel.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah, I've spoken to a couple of people whose dogs were on Repel, and they say they've got a nice kind of curry
That's
aroma
the
to
fenugreek.
them.
Yeah, the fenugreek. I mean, we've had a couple of dogs that don't like the smell of it. I think it's just the obviously the different smell that they're not used to. But the vast majority of fenugreek actually is quite an attractive smell to dogs. And yeah, mine love it. They wolf it
Yeah.
down.
I suppose, like with all supplements, start off with a tiny little bit and build up to the desired amount, and then your dog kind of gets used to it rather than throwing the desired amount straight off, which some can be slightly overwhelming.
Yes, exactly.
But you mentioned garlic. Many people out there will go, but garlic's poisonous. Can you tell us a bit about garlic?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of miscommunication around, and garlic can be toxic if it's fed in huge high amounts. Like 5 full heads to a dog in one go. That's when you're going to cause issues. But the amount that's in Repel and the amount that's needed, it's actually very therapeutic for multiple reasons, as it is for ourselves. So yeah, obviously just check the dose requirements for the size of your dog. But yeah, it has many benefits, and obviously it's in a small but therapeutic amount in Repel.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. So, can puppies, because puppies need worming, we all know that. Can puppies have repel, and does it actually kill the worms if they can?
We don't advise young puppies on Repel just because it's got garlic in it. And the reason with puppies is just because of the red blood cells are still developing with their immune system, so it can interfere with that. So yeah, we wouldn't advise it for puppies under 6 months of age. Really, it would probably be fine, but we just say as a precautionary level. not to. So there are other options available from that they can use from alternative companies.
Right. Thank you very much for that. So I suppose, what are your top tips for ensuring your dogs don't get infested with any parasite, really?
Well, feed them a good diet. I mean, diet's the corner of health. So feeding them a good quality diet is the first step. And secondly, just, you know, just use more natural based options, which keeps them healthy, which keeps them unattractive to parasites. Check them, especially in peak season. So, you know, from sort of when the weather starts getting warmer, sort of March time, right through to sort of October, November. I know we've had quite a mild winter, haven't we? But yeah, just check your dogs regularly. Just spot, you know, see if they're itching more than normal. Always double check them from fleas. Check them your hands over to check them for ticks, and do regular worm counts. But if you're fueling them well and you're using natural repellents, then the chances are that you're not going to be finding many parasites, which is what we all want.
Yeah, absolutely. So with ProDog Raw Repel, when would you start giving that? Do you give it all year round, or do you have breaks?
No, I don't give it all year round. I've actually just had my order delivered today of Repel. So I will probably start it at the end of this month. So sort of end of February, beginning of March, because it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get into the dog system, ready for when the warmer weather starts. So yeah, I would start that around about them, and then I would feed it right the way through till probably the end of Octoberish time, and then give them a break over the sort of winter Christmas period when we shouldn't really be seeing many fleas and ticks around that area at that time of year. But I know people still do, unfortunately, because we're not getting the colder, harsher weathers as we used to, which kills everything off.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, gone are the days to boggle the old Christmas Day, eh?
Yeah, thanks.
But oh, that's really fascinating. Thank you. That's a great insight into fleas, ticks, and worms, and how we can repel or cure naturally. So, is there anything else you'd like to add? A word of encouragement, because for some people, I think it's a big step to move from the chemical treatment they've been so used to moving into a more natural approach.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing to say is nothing is 100% bomb-proof from these things. Nothing. You know, the chemicals that they're using doesn't stop the ticks from attaching or the fleas from jumping on. Basically, all that does, and not all of them do anymore. Like I said earlier, a lot of them are getting immune to these chemicals. Is they will still jump on the dogs and they will suck the blood and then they will die, which, you know, might seem like, well, it's working, but at the end of the day, these chemicals are killing the nervous system of these parasites. What is it doing to your dog's system? What's it's residing in the bloodstream? You know, so the more you can fuel your dog and make your dog healthy, then, you know, the better it is for the dog, for the environment, for yourself, for your own health. As I say, because people don't always associate illnesses and health issues with your dogs from these chemicals that you're putting them in. You know, if they don't have an immediate reaction within the first 5 minutes of you putting a spot on, for example, they think that because 3 days later they were lethargic or they were being sick, they just don't necessarily associate the two. And people don't also associate dogs that have a lot of digestive or skin issues, that the chemicals that they're putting in monthly, quarterly to the dogs are actually contributing in a lot of cases for these skin and digestive issues.
Yeah, no, it's all quite alarming, really, isn't it? But I say, Alison, you know, you've written a fantastic, really informative blog about parasites, which you can find on the website. But also, you know, email in if you've got any questions. Then more than happy to answer them and point people in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And the good
I
thing about Repel is if you wanted to give it a try, see how your dog takes to it. If your dog won't eat it or there's any issues, then you can always get, you've got a 30-day money back guarantee. So to me, it's like just give it a go and just, see how your dog is on it. I mean, and how much healthier they are with more natural based options as opposed to chemicals.
yeah. Oh, that's again, that should help people go, well, actually I can give it a go because there's no risk involved. It's
Yeah.
all natural ingredients, and if your dog doesn't take to it, then you can get your money back. But again, by just adding these supplements in, just tiny little bits to start with and building up to the right dose, most dogs will really enjoy their meals with it in as much as without it in. And I think
Or
many a
more.
fussy
I think,
eat
yeah.
I
I know.
think many a fussy eater has gone, actually, I love this stuff. Thank you very much. It really
I
enhanced my
know.
meal.
I know.
Yeah. So, Alison, thank you so much for your very
You're
insightful
welcome.
notes.
You're very more than welcome.
Yeah, great to have you on the team. Yeah, love picking your brains on everything nutrition, I must say. I'm a very lucky girl.
Good. Thank you.
Alison, thank you so much for joining me today and giving your insightful knowledge on fleas, ticks, and worms, those pesky parasites. So, if anyone would like more information, there's, of course, Alison's blog on parasites. But also, if you want information on Repel or any of our other supplements, food and treats, then do have a browse through our website or email customer-services at prodogrraw.com. So thank you so much for joining us today and listening in to the podcast. Please do join us in the future where I will be speaking to more experts talking about the natural and holistic approaches to your dog's health and happiness.